everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Expert Witness Podcast. I'm your host, Heather Smith, and the Expert Witness Podcast is sponsored by Alpine Engineering and Design. Your first call for looking for a mechanical engineering expert witness. Today's guest is David Smith. David, the Vice President of today's sponsor, Alpine Engineering and Design, and in addition to design, analysis, and safety work, he also provides opinions on both patent and product liability cases. David has a bachelor's and a master's degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA with an emphasis in product development. He's a licensed professional engineer and certified safety professional. And outside of his work, David, he loved to mountain bike, camp, and participated in a triathlon. Looks like you also completed a St. George half Ironman. That's great. David, thanks for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Heather. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, can you tell us why Alpine Engineering and Design decided to start Expert Witness Podcast?
Yeah, so the main reason that we decided to try this is because I know for a lot of attorneys, finding the right expert for your case can be a little bit difficult. It's not really something that they train you for in law school. And so to find the right expert with the right expertise and the right personality and the right background for your case can sometimes be challenging. And what we want to accomplish with this podcast is to give attorneys a little bit more information about an expert than you would probably get from a typical CV or maybe even a phone conversation. And so by doing this through video and on podcast, you get a chance to essentially meet the expert and see them, how they speak, how they perform in front of a camera in a live setting, and hopefully that will be beneficial to the attorneys as they start to make some of their decisions on who they want to hire.
Well, to get started, tell us a little bit about the things that you do at Alpine Engineering as far as design work goes.
Alpine Engineering and Design is a consulting company, basically an outsourced engineering department for other companies. So with that model, we get to work on a lot of different projects, which is a lot of fun and also gives us insight into a lot of different industries. So for example, we work on trucks and trailers, dump trucks, semi-trailers, that sort of thing. We work on thrill rides, big swings, zip lines. We work on consumer products like picnic tables or hammock stands or even blenders. The variety is really there is a lot of variety in the work that we do.
So how many cases have you worked on in expert witness services?
So I have been retained on a little over 40 cases as an expert witness. Now, about half of those are patent cases and about half are product liability cases.
Okay, so a good mix.
hmm
How did you get into the expert witness work?
Yeah, so this is probably a little bit unusual the way I got into this. So when I graduated from college and started working with Alpine Engineering and Design, there were already people at our company who were doing expert witness work. So as I was working on different projects, some of those projects would be very hardcore, heavy engineering projects where we're doing a lot of analysis, building prototypes and testing them. And some of them would be working on expert witness projects, helping the other experts that we have in our firms. So that would be things like doing research for them, creating test equipment, running tests, drafting reports, things like that that really gave me kind of an introduction to what's required and the types of things that happen, as well as a lot of the information. It gave me a good background with the information that is used quite often in expert witness work.
Tell me a little bit more about that. You mentioned you do patent cases and product liability. Are there resources or tools that have really helped that you rely on frequently?
Yes, absolutely. So as a mechanical engineer, the first tool that we use in almost every case is some sort of CAD system where we're looking at components, looking at drawings, doing analysis to see if they function the way they're supposed to. Uh, we also have a prototype shop where we can build and test prototypes or
Mm.
build and test different situations in a safe way. A lot of times, particularly with product liability cases, when you read through the complaint, there's typically an explanation of what somebody thinks happened, what caused the accident, what caused the injury. And sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes it doesn't make so much sense. So, a lot of times we can set up a safe test to try and recreate the scenario and determine whether or not what has been stated to have happened actually could happen in the way that it was explained in the complaint. And with that, we also have documentation to either show and prove or disprove what has been said. So for product liability cases, we end up doing a lot of testing, we end up doing a lot of CAD work. We also have a lot of standards. We have a whole library full of standards that we use. Some of the most common are standards on safety. The ANSI committee has put together several standards on safety that we use on a regular basis, both from a machine design standpoint and just from a general safety practice standpoint. Those are both standards that we use fairly often.
Okay. And how many times have you testified in trial?
So I've testified 9 times in deposition, and I have not yet testified in trial. I expect that will happen at some point, but until then, I'll just tell people that I'm really good at writing reports.
Sounds good. How do you get new cases?
So our cases come from really 3 main sources. The first one is through our website. We've done a lot of work on our SEO, and we try to be fairly easy to find online. So people coming directly to our website and calling into the office. The second one is through referral companies. There are a number of those that we've worked with for a number of years and have good relationships with. And the third one is repeat clients, people that we've done work with in the past that liked what we did and keep coming back. So those are really the 3 places that we get new cases from.
So what advice would you give someone wanting to get into expert witness work?
I think the best advice I could give to someone that wanted to get into this kind of work is to really take a look at what is required and know what to expect as you go into it. For example, when you do this type of work, you have to understand that there will almost always be a whole room full of really smart people trying to poke holes in everything that you say and make you look foolish. So you have to know going into this from the very beginning that you need to be very, very concise, very precise, have good documentation for the things that you're saying and for the testing that you do so that you can back up everything that you say, and that makes it a lot harder for people to poke holes in you and really helps you to maintain your credibility as an expert.
So what are the biggest mistakes you see other experts make?
Generally, I think most experts do a very good job. Most that have done this, more than once, and the attorneys usually help them to do a good job. Where I do see people or other experts make mistakes is when they perhaps go too far out on a limb. They say things that may or may not be true, but we just don't know, and they state it as a precise, definite fact, and that can really get you into trouble.
So what do you want attorneys to know about working with you as an expert?
So the thing that I would want attorneys to know is that I like to have good support for any opinions that I'm making. And a lot of times I'll push back on things that attorneys might want me to say if I'm not totally comfortable with it. I don't like going out on a limb to places where it opens me up for cross-examination, and so I like to work with the attorneys, push back if there's a point that's not particularly strong, and try and figure out how we can take that weak part and turn it into more of a strength. Figure out if there's some way to phrase it or create a better argument that works better for the case. hmm
So how can listeners find you when they need your service?
Yeah, so the best way to find us is to go to our website, www.alpineeng.com. On there you'll find our CVs, phone numbers, email address, and it makes it very easy to get in touch with us.
Thank you. So again, we want to thank Alpine Engineering and Design for sponsoring this podcast. And again, you can find them at alpineeng.com. Thanks for participating, David.
Thank you, Heather. It's been a pleasure.